I'm always critical of Africa because it has many shortcomings. You know, African leaders could be doing much better. African societies could be much better organized.
Welcome to Donors Week, which is about what I've been up to for the past 7 days, the people I've interacted with, the places I've been to, the things I've done and not done, and the thoughts I've had.
Okay, so, hi. Let me tell you about the latest happenings in Donu's world. So, I left Nigeria a week ago, and I'm now sitting in my sister's kitchen in London. I used to have my own place in London, but it became too expensive to maintain a property in the UK and a property in Nigeria. So I basically just squat with my sister whenever I'm here, which is often. So I thank her for her tolerance because she has to put up with me a lot. Okay, so the first thing I did when I got here, after crashing out for a few hours and getting some sleep, was to attend a birthday party hosted by my friend Karen Robinson, who has just turned 70. And we used to work together as journalists for the British Sunday Times newspaper, a very distinguished publication. And we also we're founder members of an international women's book club, which has members from India, America, South Africa, the UK, and Nigeria. So it was a great party, lovely to catch up with everyone. And I'm going to share some of the pictures of the event. Then on Monday, I set up Rescue Rivers, which is a kind of pressure group and support group for people from Rivers State who find this imposition of martial law, this disgraceful undermining of our human rights, unacceptable, okay? So I spent quite a lot of time sorting that out, you know, communicating with people and trying to figure out what we can do to show our displeasure about being treated like crap. Then one of the people I met this week was a very interesting English lady called Claire, who told me that she has a friend who is a white guy who is a big actor in Nollywood. He lives in Lagos. So I'm really intrigued because I don't really watch Nollywood movies, to be honest with you, but I'm very happy that they're so successful and they're doing very well internationally and very popular in Africa and, you know, Nigeria as well, of course. And so I've noticed that when I do catch glimpses of them in passing, I've noticed that they do have foreigners in them sometimes. Well, one of the foreigners is a white actor who is a friend of Claire's, whom I've just met in London, and I am determined to track him down when I go to Lagos. The next time I visit Lagos, and Claire is going to give me his contact details. And you know, my son, who lives in Los Angeles, wants to be an actor. And I think, you know, it's not a bad idea for him to consider the possibility of coming back to Nigeria to start his acting career here. Because obviously, or there, I should say, because I'm not in Nigeria at the moment. Obviously, Nollywood cannot match Hollywood for funding, budgets, technical expertise. But, you know, there's a lot of creative talent in Nollywood. And I think that people like my son would do well to seriously consider the homegrown movie industry, maybe as a stepping stone to bigger things internationally. But, you know, it's not a bad idea to start with Nigeria. A lot of music stars have started with Nigeria and done very well out of it. Okay, so I also had my goddaughter. I have 2 goddaughters and a godson. One of my goddaughters got married last December, that's Gabriella, and another one here in London, Mabel, who's English, has just gotten engaged. So her wedding is imminent, but they're not going to get married this year, but they are now officially engaged. And so she came to see me with her mom, Isabel, whom I've known since I was 11, and old school friend. We actually went on holiday together to Venice last November. Some of you who've been long-time watchers of Donu's World will remember my trip to Venice with Isabel. Anyway, so Isabel comes around with her daughter. We had a lovely evening. We had Thai food. And I'm trying to think of what I can give Mabel as a wedding gift or an engagement gift. And, somehow we got to talking about how we would love to visit Japan. And I just thought, you know what, if I do well out of one of my projects, my work projects, if I have enough money, I will take Isabel to Japan. I will take Mabel to Japan, and Isabel could come along as well if she wants, and my son as well. And so that's kind of like my little dream for the moment, is this me, Isabel, Oliver, and Mabel having a week or two in Japan to celebrate Mabel's engagement. Keep your fingers crossed for me, because if I don't make enough money, it's not going to happen. The food for thought for this week is, I think as you get older, there's a tendency to become very boring. Karen's party that I mentioned earlier on in this video was great fun, but it ended at 9 p.m. because of the constraints, of the venue. And one of our friends who was there said, "Hey, there's a lovely pub across the road. Let's go there and have a few drinks." And everyone was going, "Oh no, it's getting late. I've got to get home." And I was one of the people saying, "Well, I'm not sure I really want to carry on." And then I later thought, look, why on earth would you want to stop hanging out with your friends at 9 p.m.? The night is yet young. Older people really need to pack in some joie de vivre, some energy, because, we do become quite dull as the years roll past. And this tendency to avoid excitement and sort of go to bed early and never make any exceptions to the rule. Obviously, when you're 60 or 70, you don't want to be going to discos every night or bars. But at the same time, why aren't we having more fun? Why have our lives become so grey? And I really think I'm going to do something about it. I have become one of those grey older people. And I think at least, once or twice a month, for God's sake, get up, drink with your friends till midnight or 2 a.m., talk about the state of the world, and remember what it's like to be an energetic, fun-loving member of the human race. And, instead of always finding excuses to be in bed before 10 o'clock, which is, I'm sure, a good thing generally, but, come on, we've got to make exceptions sometimes. I think aging, my thoughts for the day, if you like, is that some of us are we're aging too quickly. We're not taking life by the, we're not grabbing life and enjoying ourselves like we used to. And there's no reason why we should become so, so boring. And finally, I want to say that being in the UK has reminded me, talking about aging, it's not a good place. England is not a good place to grow old in unless you're very rich and you can be well taken care of in your own home by, nurses or housekeepers or whatever. I have to tell you, I think Africa, or at least Nigeria, is a much, much better place to grow old in. I've been looking at all the sort of older people here, especially the black ones, who obviously attract my attention more. And they're dragging themselves around, sometimes with walking sticks, sometimes with mobility scooters. Some of them are limping, and they're looking so tired and washed out, and there's no one to help them, and they're carrying shopping bags. This does not happen to old people in Nigeria. In Nigeria, there's a lot of respect for the elderly, and people are only too happy to help. I'm always critical of Africa because it has many shortcomings. You know, African leaders could be doing much better. African societies could be much better organized. And, you know, but I have to say that in Africa, an older person can grow old in peace in their own home, and there's lots of people around them to help, and they are helping willingly. And help doesn't cost a fortune. That is, if you don't have family members around you, and almost everybody does anyway, you can pay somebody to come and help you. I mean, my mother died in my home, having spent the last few years of her life with me in Abuja. And the nurses who took care of her cost me a tiny fraction of what a nurse would have cost me if we had been living in London at the time. It's just extraordinary how difficult it is to navigate old age in a place where it's cold. By the way, there's the weather factor, and the cold gets into your joints. In a place where people don't rush up to old people and offer to carry their bags. They watch them literally dragging themselves around painfully without offering any support, which would never happen in Nigeria. Even at my relatively, I mean, I'm fairly sprightly for, you know, an old person. I mean, I'm 65. People rush up to me all the time and offer to carry my bags and offer me seats. And, you know, that does not happen here in London. It doesn't. It's, you know, and then it costs so much. The help costs a lot here, if you get help at all. And 9 times out of 10, people wind up having to sell their houses and move into old people's homes. And even if well, at least the good thing is, even if they don't have houses they own that they can sell, the government will take care of them. But it's all very grim. And I'm just looking at the way old people cope here, and I just think, no, even if I don't wind up dying in Nigeria, I sure as hell I'm not planning to spend my entire old age in the UK, which as far as I'm concerned is a real place of suffering for people over the age of, you know, people who are no longer in the full bloom of youth. Okay, so that's all I want to say for today. Thank you. Bye.